Welcome to This Day in His Story, created by American Heritage Worldwide. A reminder that every day holds something new to learn. Did you know Louisa May Alcott was a nurse in the Union Army during the Civil War? Join us as we take a closer look into her life and the influence of gatherings and conversations with poets, philosophers, and reformers on her books and plays.
You know, if I say the name Little Women,
Yeah,
you immediately get this picture in your head, right? It's Jo March.
absolutely. Brash, brilliant, always scribbling away in that attic.
Exactly. And the four sisters, the loving mother, this cozy New England house that just feels, I don't know, almost timeless.
It does. But the life behind that beloved story.
Oh, it was so much more tumultuous, chaotic even.
And frankly, a lot stranger than most people realize. Today we're going to do a deep dive into Louisa May Alcott, the author who, well, she didn't just write a story. She basically took her own life.
Which was this wild mix of intellectualism, spirituality, and, just desperate poverty.
Right, and she polished it into this masterpiece.
So that's our mission for this deep dive. We want to really connect the dots. We're going to look at these rich, sometimes heartbreaking details of her life.
Her radical transcendentalist upbringing, the mentors she had, her experience in the Civil War.
And see how all of that created the foundation for the March family saga? Why does it still resonate so much?
And we can actually start with a detail that's, well, it's a perfect bridge between her real life and her fictional one.
Okay.
Alcott was born on November 29th, 1832.
A detail she gives directly to her heroine, Jo, who says, November is the most disagreeable month in the whole year.
Exactly. It's that little bit of personal frustration, that sarcasm, that is pure Alcott stepping right into Jo's shoes.
And that birthday, it also sets up her whole family context, which is really our first big topic here.
Because November 29th was also her father's birthday. Amos Bronson Alcott.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he wrote about his joy in the birth of a second daughter on my own birthday. So it's this immediate, intense familial connection.
And her father, for all his philosophical ideas, he seems to have seen her drive so clearly right from the beginning.
It's an incredible assessment he makes. Before she's even 2 years old, he's writing about her.
What did he say?
He noted she had uncommon activity and force of mind. But this is the line that gets me, the one that basically predicts her entire life.
Yeah.
By force of will and practical talent, she realizes all that she conceives.
Force of will and practical talent. That's Jo March. That's Alcott herself.
It's the whole engine. The dreamer who also, gets things done.
And that engine got started in some very strange places. We have to talk about Fruitlands.
Oh, we do. This was not a normal childhood move. It was a communal experiment with transcendentalist mystics.
So what does that even mean for a kid?
It means you're immersed in idealism. For them, spiritual experience was the highest form of reality. So they lived in this old farmhouse, and everything, the food, the work, the clothes, it was all dictated by this commitment to spiritual purity.
Sounds intellectually fascinating.
And probably miserable, practically speaking.
Right. A lot of high-minded thinking and not a lot of food.
Exactly. That's the tension that defines her entire childhood. They eventually left Fruitlands, thankfully, and later moved to a place in Concord called Hillside House.
Which is famous now because Nathaniel Hawthorne lived there later.
Right. But for the Alcotts, it was a different kind of intellectual hub. Less utopian commune.
And more of a salon for great thinkers.
Precisely. The family hosted gatherings with poets, reformers, philosophers. I mean, imagine being a kid when the person dropping by for a conversation is Ralph Waldo Emerson.
The air you'd breathe would just be different. You're growing up on the absolute frontier of American thought.
And that shapes everything about how you see the world, and especially how you're educated.
Which is our next section. Because despite all this access to genius, her actual schooling was pretty unconventional.
Taught at home, mostly, with her sisters. But again, unconventional doesn't mean limited. Their classroom was Concord and Elf.
Right. The sources talk about them boating on the river, running in the woods.
By skating on Walden Pond. I mean, it's this amazing mix of a rugged, free-range childhood with this intense intellectual life.
And that's where the mentors come in. This is one of my favorite details. One of her actual teachers was Henry David Thoreau.
I know, you can't make it up. It's the ultimate Concord flex, isn't it?
Totally. And what kind of lessons did he teach?
Well, not from textbooks. He taught from nature. There's this one charming example where he describes a spider's cobweb to her.
Oh, I love this part.
He calls it a handkerchief dropped by a fairy.
And that right there, that's the key. She was taught to look at the ordinary world and see the magic in it. That is the core ingredient of Little Women, making domestic life feel profound.
It is. And it wasn't just Thoreau. She had this incredible, basically unsupervised access to Ralph Waldo Emerson's private library.
So she's not just checking out books, she's borrowing from the mind of the American Renaissance.
And she didn't just read it. She immediately started creating from it.
Right, the plays.
The whole family became a dramatic society. They used the barn at Hillside House as their theater and performed Louisa's original plays. That was her writing workshop.
Learning dialogue, pacing, story, not in the classroom, but by putting on a show.
It's the most practical education you could imagine for a future novelist.
Okay, so we have this picture of high idealism, incredible mentorship, this huge creative drive. But now we have to pivot.
Yes, the reality check.
Section 3. The money. Or really the lack of it. The sources are very clear that the Alcotts were constantly, desperately poor.
Her father's idealism just didn't pay the bills. So that force of will we talked about, it had to be channeled into earning money.
For everyone in the family.
Everyone. They worked as teachers, as companions, as housekeepers for neighbors. This need to hustle was just the defining narrative of her life.
Which leads to maybe the most fascinating part of her career. Her secret identity.
A thriller writer.
Yes.
Yeah.
She needed to make reliable income, and she started by publishing, respectable stories in places like the Atlantic Monthly.
But it wasn't enough. So, on the side, under the pen name A.M. Barnard.
She starts churning out these sensational, lurid thrillers, basically the pulp fiction of her day.
It's just so brilliant. Here's the daughter of a transcendentalist, a student of Emerson and Thoreau.
Writing about psychological thrills and dark romance.
Because it sold. It was pure business. It shows that practical talent her father saw. She would do what it took to solve the family's financial problem, even if it meant living this dual life as a writer.
That same drive is what pushed her into her next big life-altering experience.
The Civil War.
Yeah. She signed up to be a nurse in the Union Army Hospital in Washington, D.C.
A really pivotal moment. It was a brief time, but it was incredibly traumatic, and it left a permanent mark on her.
Not just on her writing, but physically, the consequences were devastating.
They were. She contracted a severe case of typhoid fever, which was just rampant in the hospitals.
And she got so sick they had to bring her home to Concord as an invalid. But it wasn't just the fever, was it?
No, and this is the crucial part. The treatment for the fever at the time often involved mercury.
So she was poisoned.
Exactly. She suffered from mercury poisoning, and the source material makes it clear that the chronic poor health that resulted from this, it lasted for over 20 years.
The rest of her life, basically.
The rest of her life.
Yeah.
She paid an incredible physical price for her service.
But true to form, she immediately turned that trauma into art.
Get into income. She published her experiences in a book called Hospital Sketches. Even when she's critically ill, that practical talent is at work, turning life into publishable material.
Which brings us finally to the masterpiece, Little Women.
Section 4. Her publisher saw how powerful her biographical writing was, and in 1868, they basically prompted her to write a story for girls.
Which she famously resisted. She said she didn't know anything about girls.
The irony is just. It's incredible, because that book gave her the lasting fame and, more importantly, the financial security that her father's philosophy never could.
And she was smart enough to build on it.
Oh, absolutely. She saw the hunger for these characters. She followed it up with Part Second, then Little Men, and Joe's Boys. She created a literary franchise from her own life.
But her force of will didn't stop there. She also became a political activist.
Yes, that reform-minded spirit she grew up with, it came out in the 1870s. She got deeply involved in the women's suffrage movement, right alongside her mother.
And she didn't just talk about it.
No, she acted. The sources note a really concrete achievement here. Louisa May Alcott was the first woman to register to vote in a Concord school committee election.
So she's moving from influencing culture to actively changing the laws of her community.
But ultimately, that chronic poor health from the war, it caught up with her.
She died on March 6, 1888, in Boston.
It's a somber end. But when you synthesize it all, the utopian experiments, the mentorship from geniuses, the financial desperation, the secret thrillers, the wartime trauma, it all fed into this literature that's about the one thing that was constant for her.
Family.
The family unit. She used all the complicated, contradictory parts of her own life to write a story about the importance of family that just, it continues to resonate.
It speaks to this universal human balance, I think.
It does. And the sources actually give us a way to connect to that. Pose a couple of questions for you, the listener, to think about.
Like what?
Like, In what way is your family similar to the family in Little Women? And can you compare any part of their story to your family's story?
That's her real genius, isn't it? She took this one-of-a-kind, extraordinary life and made it feel recognizable to anyone who's ever dealt with ambition or money problems or just loving their siblings.
And if you look at the final philosophical takeaway from the sources, it ties it all together beautifully. It goes back to those transcendentalist ideals, but with her hard-won practicality.
What does it say?
It states that families are important in our mortal and eternal lives, and that the family is central to the Creator's plan. Alcott's entire life was this fight to hold her family together against everything.
So the provocative thought to leave you with might be this. Her father's early observation was right all along. It all comes down to realizing what you conceive by force of will. That sheer determination is the foundation for everything she ever wrote. It's the engine we all need to find in ourselves.
Thank you for joining us for this day in His story. May the lessons of yesterday inspire you to see God's hand today and to play your part in His story now. For more faith-based learning, visit ahsworldwide.org, the homeschool for faith and family.